store next. In Bangladesh, the anti-India rhetoric is rising from visas to floods to domestic turmoil. India is being blamed for everything that's going wrong there. We'll tell you why it's a race to the bottom. In India's Uttar Pradesh, the government will pay influencers to promote schemes. Who else has done it and what is the criticism against this move? In Brazil, Elon Musk's ex faces a ban. The billionaire is locked in a bitter feud with a Supreme Court judge. In Afghanistan, women are protesting the Taliban's draconian laws. They are singing publicly in defiance of a voice ban. In the Malayalam film industry, cases mount against top actors and filmmakers. In the US, Donald Trump is on a fundraising mission. He's selling everything from fight cards to sneakers to Bibles. And back in India, the ISRO chief has stirred a debate. He says aliens are real, but where is the proof? We'll decode this constant obsession with extraterrestrial life. And finally, would you eat cabbage stew ice cream? Apparently, Hungary loves it. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Joe Biden's top aide meets Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing. Jake Sullivan tells Xi the US president is looking forward to talks with him. Sullivan is the first US national security advisor to visit China since 2016. Xi Jinping says Beijing remains committed to good ties with Washington. But China has been embroiled in security rows with American allies Japan and the Philippines. Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe launches his re-election campaign, defends the nearly $3 billion International Monetary Fund bailout. His rivals have vowed to hold fresh talks with the IMF if they come to power. They've also pledged to cut income taxes, which were doubled by Wickremesinghe. Sri Lanka will hold its presidential election on the 21st of September. The Crown Prince of the UAE is expected to visit India on the 8th of September. He will meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi during the visit. The focus will be on strengthening trade and strategic ties. Prime Minister Modi has visited the UAE 7 times since 2015. A powerful typhoon slams into southern Japan. This is the second typhoon to hit the country this month. Authorities warn of flooding and landslides. More than 5 million people have been asked to evacuate. This is one of Japan's strongest typhoons in decades. And Reliance Industries chairman Mukesh Ambani hails the rise of New India, also praises First Post at RIL's annual general meeting. He says First Post is becoming a global news powerhouse.
First Post is becoming a global news powerhouse. Its subscriber base has more than doubled in the last 12 months. In July, First Post recorded 127 million video views. This ranks it 6th among global peers to become the definitive global news destination from India.
India faces a new challenge on the high seas. China is ramping up its naval operations in India's backyard. This week, an Indian Navy ship docked in Colombo. Chinese warships were also present. Not one, not two, but 3 Chinese vessels. They just happened to be in Colombo at the same time. What are the odds? These visits are becoming more frequent now. Beijing now deploys 12 to 15 ships to the Indian Ocean every year. 12 to 15 Chinese ships. How should India respond to this? How can it keep Chinese naval activity in check? With the help of submarines, India is deploying nuclear submarines to build deterrence. The latest one was launched today. It is called the INS Arighat. Arighat means the destroyer of enemies. The submarine runs on nuclear power and it can launch nuclear missiles. India's defense minister launched the submarine today. The INS Arighat will strengthen India's nuclear triad. And what is a nuclear triad? It is the ability to launch nuclear weapons from land, sea and air. India gained this capability in 2018 with the INS Arighat becoming fully operational. Arihant was India's first nuclear-capable submarine. INS Arighat will now support the INS Arihant. These are a special class of submarines. They're called SSBN. SSBN stands for Ship, Submersible, Ballistic and Nuclear. In simpler words, an SSBN is like a Swiss Army knife of submarines, from staying submerged for months to launching ballistic missiles to stealth capabilities and launching nuclear weapons. These vessels can do all of it. Also, they don't need to be refueled frequently. Conventional submarines usually run on diesel, so they have to resurface periodically to be refueled. But SSBMs have a small nuclear reactor on board. This reactor powers the submarine, and that is how they stay submerged for a long period of time. Now, why does India need such submarines? For starters, it improves our deterrence. India has a no first use policy, meaning it will never strike an enemy with nuclear weapons first. No first use. And upholding this principle requires effective deterrence. What if there's a nuclear strike and India's land and air options are impaired? What do you do then? In that scenario, submarines will ensure that India can still retaliate. Both INS Arighat and Arighat operate under the water, so they're less vulnerable to a nuclear strike. They can carry up to 4 nuclear missiles. These missiles have a range of over 3,500 kilometers. So apart from boosting deterrence, they also give India leverage on the high seas and extend India's nuclear reach far beyond its borders. But New Delhi has a more immediate concern: the Chinese Navy and its growing fleet of ships and submarines. In pure numbers, China is way ahead of India. The PLA is the largest naval force in the world. In 2020, it had more than 70 submarines, 70 submarines with China in 2020. What about India? The Indian Navy was operating less than 20 subs. Now, India is trying to bridge this gap. The plan is to acquire 24 new vessels by 2030, 24 new submarines. This will include 18 conventional and 6 nuclear-powered subs. There are also plans to beef up the SSBM fleet to have up to 4 such submarines in the near future. And this will make India the only non-permanent member of the UN Security Council to operate at such a scale. And where would these submarines be deployed? Mostly around India's immediate borders, like the Bay of Bengal, the Andaman Sea, and the northern part of the Indian Ocean. These regions are strategically significant for not just India, but China as well. Many important trade routes pass through these waters, which is why China keeps sending ships here. It wants to dominate these waters. India's new fleet of vessels will help keep China in check. But for this deterrence strategy to be effective in the long run, India needs both speed and scale. New inductions cannot be delayed. Trouble is mounting for Sheikh Hasina. She's turning into the Imran Khan of Bangladesh. Imran Khan has around 150 cases against him. Sheikh Hasina now has 75. Frankly, it's getting hard to keep track because a new case is filed almost every day against her and the charges vary. 63 of them are murder charges, a crime that carries the death penalty in Bangladesh. 7 cases are linked to crimes against humanity and 3 are linked to abduction. Of course, Hasina is in India right now, so she's beyond the reach of Bangladeshi authorities. The interim government has talked about extraditing her. So have the main political parties and groups like the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the Jatiya Party and the Jamaat-e-Islami. All of them want India to extradite Sheikh Hasina, but no official request has been made so far. Meanwhile, the public sentiment is turning against New Delhi. The first trigger was Hasina herself. Her stay in India has ruffled some feathers in Dhaka. The second reason is the floods. Heavy rainfall battered northeast India and Bangladesh in recent days. Around 11 districts in Bangladesh were flooded. More than 1 million people were affected. Many Bangladeshis blame India for it. They say India opened a dam upstream which led to a sudden rush of water into Bangladesh. They say it was retaliation for Hasina's ouster. Now, India has rejected this claim. Multiple fact-checkers have backed India's position. If anyone is to blame, it is nature or maybe climate change. But such is the political climate in Bangladesh. The anti-India rhetoric is clouding public opinion. People are angry and confused, and they need someone to blame. But what is the interim government doing about it? Have they tried to cool the tensions? Well, quite the opposite. Let's focus on 2 recent moves by Dhaka. Number 1, they have released the chief of a Bangladeshi terror group. It's called ATB, or Ansarullah Bangla Team. Now, this is a group linked to the Al-Qaeda. Their chief is Jaishimuddin Rahmani. And he was in jail for abetting a blogger's murder, but the caretaker regime has released him. Now, the ATB is a headache for India as well. Reports say they have designs on India's northeast. In fact, 2 ATB terrorists were arrested in Assam this year. Sheikh Hasina did not tolerate such groups. She cracked down on them, but clearly the new regime has different ideas. Which brings us to the second move. Dhaka has lifted the ban on the Jamaat-e-Islami. We've talked about this group before. The Jamaat is a radical Islamist group. They have ties to the Pakistani deep state. They also opposed Bangladesh's liberation in 1971. In fact, the Jamaat collaborated with Pakistan. They helped Islamabad slaughter Bengalis. Again, Sheikh Hasina cracked down on them. She banned the Jamaat after the recent protests. But Dhaka has lifted the ban. The strategy here is quite clear. The public sentiment is anti-India, so the interim regime is tapping into it. They're actively courting India's rivals. Just look at this report. Bangladesh is buying military supplies from Pakistan, around 40,000 rounds of ammunition and 2,900 high-intensity projectiles. Now, such orders are not unprecedented, but the scale definitely is. Last year, Bangladesh bought 12,000 rounds from Pakistan. This year, they're buying 40,000. It may sound like a good strategy in the short term, but it's a race to the bottom. Because India and Bangladesh need each other. We share more than 4,000 kilometers of border. We also share 54 rivers between the two countries. Total bilateral trade is $14 billion. India is Dhaka's second biggest trading partner in Asia. And don't forget, people-to-people ties. Around 1.6 million Bangladeshis visited India in 2023. A lot of that is medical tourism. They come here for treatment and medical care. This is a relationship that goes back centuries. It is bound by culture, language, geography, and trade. You can't ignore it for politics. Yes, the public opinion is unfavorable, but Bangladeshi leaders are not doing anything to fix it. They're milking the rhetoric for popularity. It may work for them in the short term. It may even get some of these anti-India leaders elected, like we saw in the Maldives. But in the long term, both countries need each other. India realizes and accepts this. Bangladesh should too. Speaking of India, the state of Uttar Pradesh is introducing a new social media policy, a controversial one. It's basically a carrots and stick program. Suppose you're an influencer on social media, YouTube, Instagram, X, or Facebook. Well, you can make content on UP government schemes. If it's good content, you'll get rewarded. How much? Up to 8 lakh rupees. That's $9,500. And if the content is critical, well, maybe some form of punishment. Let me explain. The UP government is inviting influencers to register themselves. They will be divided into 4 categories, A, B, C, and D. The divisions vary from platform to platform. Your status depends on your subscribers or followers. Consider YouTube and Facebook. If you have 1 million subscribers, you're category A. 500,000 is category B. 200,000 is C and 100,000 is category D. For Instagram and X, the range is different. 500,000 is category A, 300,000 is B, and so on. Now let's talk payments. A written post gives you up to 10,000 rupees. The maximum per month is 50,000. Videos pay a lot more. If you display a government ad, you get 1 lakh rupees. If you make content around a government program, you get 2 lakh rupees. Again, there is an upper limit, up to 8 lakh rupees per month. I know it sounds lucrative. So who can apply? The influencer must have been active for at least 2 years. Plus, they must have a clean sheet, no criminal records or cases. If you fit the bill, you can apply. And there is no geographic restriction. You don't even have to be in India for this. Even influencers abroad can apply. But there is a major caveat. The content should only promote the government scheme. If not, there are consequences. In fact, let me quote from their statement. Action will be taken if the content published is offensive, anti-social, derogatory, and anti-national content is not allowed. Let me point out the obvious problem here. Who decides what is derogatory? Who decides what is anti-national? Apparently, a special body set up by the UP government. They can take action against such influencers. They can file an FIR against them, get the content deleted, or terminate their contract with the government. The opposition has slammed this new program. They're calling it censorship, an attempt to silence influencers. But the idea itself is not new. The Punjab government announced a similar scheme in 2023. Influencers were split into 5 categories. They were asked to promote Punjab's history, culture and government schemes. Again, up to 8 lakh rupees in payment. The previous Rajasthan government did the same. They roped in influencers to promote their schemes and payment up to 5 lakh rupees. So this idea is not new. Plus, governments promote their programs on channels and newspapers as well. So why not through influencers? Well, critics point out a few problems. One, those are advertisements. This is promotion. These are two very different things. And two, how do we know which content is paid? Will such content carry a disclaimer? Or will it be passed off as informative videos? I'm afraid there is no clarity. But this whole episode does reveal a larger problem, the handling of social media. And let's face it, social media is the biggest medium of our times. Not television, not newspapers, it is social media. Around 460 million Indians are on social media. That's around 32% of the total population. A lot of these users are young voters. They look up to influencers on a lot of issues: politics, fashion, health, lifestyle. Around 71% Indians get their news online. 71% Indians. 49% get it from social media, which is why governments are looking to cash in. But they don't know how. Recently, we saw an attempt by the central government. They were circulating a new broadcast bill. The idea was to categorize digital creators as broadcasters, basically YouTubers and independent creators. This would have led to more regulation, possibly affecting their content. So earlier this month, the bill was withdrawn. I'm afraid this is not an easy conversation. We have a lot of influencers spreading fake news and hate, that too without consequences. On the other side, we see attempts to buy influencers, not just by governments, but also businesses and marketing agencies. They promote products without any disclaimers. The key is to strike a balance. To do that, we need wide-ranging discussions. All stakeholders must be consulted, concerns must be addressed, and transparency and fairness should be ensured. If not, it's a slippery slope. Our next story is also about technology and the law, but this time it's from Brazil, where a feud is heating up, the feud between Elon Musk and the Brazilian Supreme Court over the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter. Yesterday, the court issued an ultimatum. Elon Musk was given 24 hours to produce a legal representative before the court. If he doesn't send someone by 8 p.m. local time today, X will get suspended in Brazil. Ironically, the court posted the summons on X and tagged Elon Musk. So what's the reason behind this feud? Why is Brazil's Supreme Court targeting Musk and X? Well, simply put, it's about misinformation, hate speech and censorship. Tensions between Brazil and X have been simmering for months now, since the 2022 presidential election in this country and the subsequent riots. The rioters were supporters of Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro lost the presidential election in 2022, but his supporters wanted to overturn the result. So they stormed Brazil's Congress building on 8th January 2023. The rioters failed to change the election result, and Brazil has been prosecuting them ever since. The investigations are still on, and the Supreme Court of the country is looking at restricting the reach of the people who are under investigation. So this April 2024, Brazil asked X to suspend some accounts. The accounts of people possibly involved in the riots or people fueling misinformation around the 2022 election. The court wanted their accounts restricted. But X and Musk did not comply with it. They said they had not been given the reasons for blocking those accounts. So instead, they chose to publicly call out Brazil's Supreme Court and one judge in particular, the one leading the case. Musk called him out by name in April. He said Moraes was Brazil's Darth Vader, the villain from Star Wars. Musk went a step further today, likening the judge to a mix of a Sith Lord and Voldemort from Harry Potter. But childish jibes won't do much to help Elon Musk's case. Look at what's happened since the feud began. Musk has come under investigation for the possible obstruction of justice and incitement to crime. Up until a few days ago, X was still getting account suspension orders. So Musk's name and shame strategy had failed. That's when he decided to shut the X offices in Brazil. He put up this post saying that Justice Moraes was making censorship demands and asking X to hand over private information. That is why X decided to shut its office in Brazil on August 17th. However, X had said that its services would still be available in the country. But now that too is under threat. Yesterday, Brazil's Supreme Court made its latest gambit. It issued the 24-hour ultimatum. Elon Musk must send a legal representative or risk losing the Brazilian market. It's a sharp attack by the Brazilian court, threatening to hit Musk where it hurts, his wallet. Because let's face it, Brazil is not a country that X can afford to lose. It is one of the platform's biggest markets. More than 24 million Brazilians used the platform last year. 24 million people in Brazil. So it's a key nation, their fourth largest market. Losing it will hurt X's profitability, which has been shaky since Musk took over the platform in 2022. So a Brazil ban might be the death blow for X. Will the threat of a ban be enough to force his hand? Elon Musk's hand. By the looks of it, probably not. This Sith Lord Voldemort picture is not the only shot that Musk fired today. So he may actually choose to lose money and keep his principles. We'll know for sure in the next few hours. It's another day and another US ambassador has managed to outrage their host nation. Yesterday we told you about Mexico, how the Mexican government has paused ties with the US embassy. Today it's Honduras. Honduras is a nation in Central America. It is home to about 10 million people and their government is furious with the US, so much so that they're scrapping a treaty, a more than 100-year-old treaty.
President Xiomara Castro has instructed us in a timely manner to proceed to terminate the extradition treaty between Honduras and the United States that was concluded in January 1912.
Honduras has announced that it will end an extradition treaty with the US. The treaty was signed in 1912. It has lasted for 112 years, but now Honduras wants out, thanks to a diplomatic faux pas by the US ambassador there. Her name is Laura Dogu. She recently commented on a meeting between the Honduran defense minister and his Venezuelan counterpart, the defense ministers of Honduras and Venezuela. Now, some of you may know that the US does not like Venezuela, and that is putting it mildly. Washington loathes Nicolas Maduro, the recently re-elected Venezuelan president. Honduras, however, shares good ties with Maduro and has no objection to meeting members of his government. So the US ambassador's actions were met with outrage. Ambassador Dogu said that she was surprised that Honduran officials met with drug traffickers. Now, some context here. The US indicted Venezuela's defense minister on drug trafficking charges in 2020. As far as Washington is concerned, Venezuela helps drugs flow into the US. But for the ambassador to say what she said, Honduras took it as an insult.
We have cooperated with the United States in all aspects of the fight against drug trafficking. But we consider these illusions that these government officials, who work in defense and hand with U.S. authorities, can imply that they are involved in drug trafficking, and this is unacceptable.
This insult has led to them cancelling a century-old treaty. It was perhaps the last straw. Look at the Honduran president's statement. In fact, let me read out the translation. The interference and interventionism of the United States, as well as its intention to direct the politics of Honduras through its embassy and other representatives, is intolerable. They attack, ignore, and violate with impunity the principles and practices of international law, which promote respect for the sovereignty and self-determination of peoples, non-intervention, and universal peace. Enough. So Honduras is not ending the treaty because of the comment, but because the US keeps meddling in their internal affairs via the ambassador. It was the same case in Mexico. The US ambassador decided to comment on Mexico's judicial reform. This outraged the country's president. So Mexico has paused ties with the US embassy. And this is not some new phenomenon, really. American ambassadors have a history of riling up their host nations. Look at these reports from down the years. Venezuela, 2006. Syria, 2011. Ecuador, also 2011. Albania, 2021. Every single time, the US ambassador has been accused of working against the country's government, of interfering in domestic issues, sometimes supporting rebels outright. And all of it is absurd. And India is no stranger to this American outreach either. Recently, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The two shared a hug and they discussed peace in Ukraine. But the US ambassador in India decided to react to this. And he reacted with a threat. He told New Delhi to not take the US-India relationship for granted. This is how American ambassadors treat allies like India. It's an unparalleled level of entitlement, making public comments about sensitive issues, whether it's high-level diplomatic meetings or a country's internal issues. American ambassadors feel an intolerable urge, perhaps, to make public comments. But that is not how diplomacy works. You can have your reservations, even share them with the relevant authorities, but why must you publicly comment on everything that tickles your fancy? Do they not teach discretion at the American State Department? This lack of tact is finally leading to some consequences in Mexico and now Honduras. But the whole world perhaps needs to start pushing back, or the US won't ever stop interfering via their ambassadors. Speaking of American blunders, let's turn to Afghanistan. Last week, the Taliban issued a new law. It is for women. They must cover their faces. They must be accompanied by male guardians. They cannot talk loudly in public. More importantly, they cannot even sing or be heard. So Afghan women must exist in silence. That's what the Taliban wants. And to be honest, we knew it would happen. This was what they did during their first stint in power. Why would this time be any different? But the women of Afghanistan are not giving up. They're singing in protest of the new laws. Our next report tells you.
It was the August of 2021. The Afghan government had collapsed. The Taliban were back in power. They promised a Taliban 2.0. 3 years later, there is no Taliban 2.0. It's the same old Taliban, and in fact, it seems worse than the first one. Last week, the Taliban published a new set of laws. It was the new Vice and Virtue laws. It came from their supreme leader, Hibatullah Akhundzada. There are a host of new laws, but they're all for women. Women must completely cover their bodies. This includes their face. They must wear thick clothing at all times. The Taliban says this is to avoid leading men into temptation. And that's just the beginning. Women must also remain completely silent. They can't speak in public. They can't read out loud. They can't sing, even from the inside of their house. Why? Because their voices can be instruments of vice. They can't directly look at men, especially if they're not related by blood or marriage. They can't be out in public alone. They must be accompanied by a male guardian. If women or girls don't comply with these laws, they will be punished. And what's the punishment? It's what the Taliban deems fit.
We want to live as living beings, live as noble creatures, not to live as a captive in one corner of the house, not to be held in the cage of house and our husbands go and beg for food. We never want a day like this.
This is the face of Taliban 2.0. They promised equality in their first press conference. Yet 3 years later, girls are out of schools. Women can't go to colleges. According to the UNESCO, 1.4 million girls are not getting any education. That puts the future of an entire generation in jeopardy. And the list goes on. Women can't step out without veils. They can't sing, they can't speak, they can't travel alone, they can't walk in public parks. Beauty salons are banned.
3 years ago, a woman in Afghanistan could technically decide to run for president. Now, she may not even be able to decide when to go and buy groceries. Now, I'm not saying that 3 years ago it was perfect. It was not perfect. But it wasn't this.
This makes the new diktat more than just a decree. It's an assault. an attack on the very essence of what it means to be human. They are seeking to erase half of Afghanistan's population by rendering them invisible and voiceless. But the women of Afghanistan are not giving up. They are singing in defiance. Afghanistan has been a land of countless battles. Freedom here is costly and it often comes at a price of unimaginable sacrifice. These women know that. With each note they sing, they aim to reclaim a piece of their stolen identity. Under Taliban rule, it's a dangerous exercise. They know their voices could be their undoing. Yet they still do it. Because silence is a death far worse than any the Taliban could impose.
mm rains in the last 12-hour period ended at 6 p.m. Now, the IMD has predicted extremely heavy rains in the isolated parts of the districts in Saurashtra even today. Chief Minister has directed authorities on the ground to deploy cleaning equipments and spray disinfectants in Vadodara city as soon as the flood water starts receding. Now, the CM has also ordered the deployment of 5 additional teams of the NDRF and 4 army columns to assist the administration in rescue and relief operations in Vadodara.
खेड़ा के मातर तहसील का बलाड़ा गांव के जो सीम विस्तार है पूरा बाढ़ की वजह से पानी में पूरा घर का हो गया है। दृश्य आप दिख रहे हैं जिस प्रकार से कि जो घर मंदिर और सभी जगह पे अभी पानी है। जहां स्थल है वहां जल है। जिस प्रकार से आपको मैं दिखा रहा हूं इस प्रकार से कि जिस प्रकार से जो पूरा घर है वो पानी में अभी बाढ़ आने की वजह से पूरा घर का हो गया है। दूसरी तरफ आपको दृश्य दिखाऊंगा कि जो पूरा रास्ता है मगरोल से सैला को जुड़ने वाला रास्ता है, पूरा रास्ता पानी में गरका हो गया है और यहाँ के लोगों की परिस्थिति इतनी विकट हुई है कि उसका जो पूरा सामान है वो भी स्थलांतर करने की दिक्कत आई है। महत्व की बात की जाए तो संपूर्णपण से जो खेड़ा जिला का ये बलाड़ा गांव है वहां से न्यूज 18 गुजराती की टीम यहाँ पहुंची थी और इससे बात की तब जानना मालूम पड़ा कि 3 दिन से ऐसी परिस्थिति है और अभी तक यहाँ पर वहीवटी तंत्र भी नहीं पहुंचा है। वहां पे न्यूज 18 की टीम पहुंची है और आपने जिस परिस्थिति को देखा अभी बारिश जब ज्यादा होती है तो बाढ़ की परिस्थिति आगे भी।
Witch hunt. It's a word we've all heard. Today it means a campaign against someone who does not conform. Someone being persecuted with little or no evidence. But where did the word come from? Well, it's from medieval Europe. It refers to a historical persecution of people, those accused of witchcraft. Most of them were women. These hunts were marked by hysteria, unfair trials, and of course false accusations. Women were executed, even burnt. Now, modern society may not burn women at the stake, but it's found other ways. Take the Malayalam film industry, for example. It's also called Mollywood. For years, powerful men here have abused women. They have exploited them. They have muffled their voices. But now these men are facing the music. Today, a rape case was filed against a man called Mukesh. He's a Malayalam actor, also a politician in the state. He is the CPIM MLA from Kollam. He's been accused of rape by an actress. She says she was threatened after she complained. And that has forced her to relocate to the neighboring state of Tamil Nadu. She's gone to Chennai. Of course, Mukesh has denied the reports. He says it's all politically motivated. But he's not the only one here. Many top actors are now being implicated. Take Dilip, for example. We told you about him yesterday. In 2017, he paid a group of men to assault a top actress. He wanted her silenced. And that led to an uproar across the state. It led to the formation of the Hema committee. So Dilip was the center of it all. He was the prime accused in the case. Yet look at what local media reports say. Dilip was the kingpin of Mollywood's power group. We've talked about this group before. It consists of 10 to 15 men. They call the shots in the industry. And turns out that Dileep was the one who headed it. He controlled film organizations. He controlled distribution. He got actors replaced. He even got a few banned from the industry. So Dileep was truly powerful. For example, look at the AMMA. That's the Association of Malayalam Movie Artists. It's a top industry body. Dileep used to be a part of it. He was expelled after the 2017 assault, but just a year later, he was reinstated. And the AMMA defended the move. Imagine that, a top body defending a sexual assault accused. Their executive committee was dissolved. The entire team stepped down, including President Mohan Lal. But critics say this is escapism. And leading that charge, the criticism, is the WCC. The Women in Cinema Collective, WCC. After the 2017 assault, women in Bollywood were appalled, and some of them came together and formed this group called the WCC, and they really made a difference. In 2017, they submitted a petition to the Kerala Chief Minister. They demanded an inquiry into the assault. They kept pushing for it. In the end, the government relented, and that is when they formed a 3-member committee led by Justice Hema, the Hema Committee. And this is what led to the Hema Committee report. It exposed the exploitation in Bollywood. It led to the current Me Too movement. So the WCC deserves all the credit, but it hasn't been an easy journey for them. They have faced many witch hunts. I'll give you an example. In 2018, the AMMA staged a skit. It included top stars like Mohan Lal and Mammootty. It was a cringe fest. Misogynistic jokes, dancing girls, women as arm candies, it had all of it. This skit was a real dig at the WCC. It ridiculed their so-called sudden rebellion. Now, this is an industry known for progressive cinema, for themes that empower women. Yet their top actors and directors are staging a skit just to hit out at a women's collective. And that's not all. The WCC and its members have faced intense trolling. Fans of male stars have abused them. They've been ridiculed. Many of these women lost out on roles. Some faced legal battles. Some had to leave the industry altogether. The modern witch hunt does not need a mob with torches. It has the court of public opinion, and for years it was against the WCC. Yet they persevered, and it's because of them that the rotten Mollywood stands exposed today. While we must praise these women, it's also time to ask the men some questions. The AMMA may have stepped down, but they still have questions to answer. Why did they protect the abusers? Why did they ridicule female actors? Why did they lash out at the WCC? Mollywood needs these answers if it aims to right its many wrongs. Now let's talk about the US election. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are locked in a tight race. It looks like this election will go down the wire. Every little advantage is going to count. On his part, Donald Trump is leaning on his star power. He's putting his name on a range of Trump merchandise. From sneakers to trading cards, photo books, and even a Bible. Everything is up for sale. Trump's candidacy has spawned new business opportunities for him. Our next report tells you more.
If you ask Donald Trump, there's no better salesperson than him.
I know the best managers. I know the best deal makers.
And I'm a very good deal maker, believe me.
Trump is putting those talents to work in this election. He's selling anything and everything. For starters, there's an entire range of Trump sneakers. Of course, they come in gold. For cryptocurrency lovers, there's an entire Bitcoin range. And a special edition, featuring that iconic fist pump photo as well. Not a fan of sneakers? No problem. The Trump supermarket has plenty more on the shelves. Like the Trump MAGA hat. There are Trump wines, a Trump-shaped Bluetooth speaker. For the geeks, there are these digital Trump trading cards. And if you're willing to shell out $1,500, you can get your hands on a commemorative physical card. It comes with a piece of the suit that Trump wore during his debate with Joe Biden.
It's really something. These cards show me dancing and even me holding some bitcoins.
Trump isn't stopping there. He wants a slice of the Bible market as well. Enter the Trump Bible. It sells for about $60.
We love God, and we have to protect anything that is pro-God.
Trump has gone all in on the book business. He's got a whole catalogue of Trump books. One of them is called Letters to Trump. It's a collection of Trump's letters, written during his time in office. Then there's the MAGA deal, laying out Trump's policy positions. Trump has even got a fantastic new book, photo book, coming out, featuring some of his best moments. The price is $99. Unless you want it signed, that will cost you $400.
I think we did a fantastic job.
Trump's array of business ventures are an entrepreneur's dream. But why does he need them? Trump insists that his products aren't political. But it is clear that he could use the cash. His legal bills are piling up. By February, they had already cost him a whopping $500 million. Trump is going to need these lawyers back in court. This month, he faces another indictment. This is over the US Capitol riots in 2021 and Trump's attempts to overturn Biden's election victory. Before he was nominated, the Republican Party made it clear that they wouldn't foot Trump's legal bills. So, the former US president may need every bit of financial muscle he can muster to tackle these cases. His legal bills are stacking up faster than any Trump merchandise flying off the shelves.
50. Look, there's Mr. Wall. This guy is the greatest guy.
There are aliens out there, and we aren't the ones saying this. It's the ISRO chief this time. ISRO stands for Indian Space Research Organization. This is India's national space agency. Its chairman is S. Somanath. He recently went on a podcast. He was asked if alien life exists and if it has visited our planet. And to this, Somanath said, absolutely, no doubt. Those were his words, absolutely, no doubt. He added that while he has no proof, his conscience says so. That there are aliens out there in the universe, and if they are technologically advanced, they have definitely visited us. Now, this, of course, is all conjecture, but coming from the ISRO chief, it is making headlines. However, Somanath is not the only one who believes this. Just last year, a former Pentagon official made similar claims. He went on record. He said that aliens have visited Earth. He also blamed the US government for keeping this a secret. He said that the US stores crashed UFOs and dead aliens. And this was an explosive accusation, but it was quashed by the Pentagon this year. Soon after, Harvard researchers came out with a study, and they made claims more suited to Hollywood movies. They said that aliens are an advanced species. They hide in a secret base on Earth and live among us without us knowing about it. So the hypotheses and allegations are plenty, but the big question still remains, do aliens exist? Well, here's what science says. No life beyond Earth has ever been found. There is no evidence of alien life, and aliens have never visited our planet. But just because extraterrestrial life has never been discovered doesn't mean it does not exist. Our galaxy is huge. We've only studied a fraction of it, a very small fraction. And so far, things look promising. There is an underwater ocean on Mars. It has raised hopes of life on the planet. There are icy moons in the outer solar system, like Saturn and Jupiter's moons. They could have oceans as well, which could be habitable. These are all recent discoveries, and they're a step forward, but we have barely scratched the surface. And let me tell you why. These discoveries come from our solar system. Let's put this in perspective. Our solar system is one of many. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, has more than 3,200 other solar systems. And there are about 2 trillion galaxies. So there are trillions of stars, moons, and planets out there. With so much turf, it is hard to run the math. But this is what common logic says. Our universe is 13.8 billion years old, and what happened on the Earth over millions of years could have happened anywhere else. So life could exist anywhere. As the saying goes, the universe is a pretty big place. If it's just us, it seems like an awful waste of space. So the possibilities are endless, and Earthlings are obsessed with these possibilities. We have made movies, written books, curated memes, and dressed up as aliens for school plays. Our pilots say they've seen otherworldly things. Our governments have established new departments for aliens. They've held hearings about fake alien mummies. And when things get boring, we get into nomenclature. We've revamped UFOs as UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena. So whether aliens exist or not, at this point, the alien mania is more a cultural obsession than an astrological one. It keeps us hopeful. We continue to gaze at the heavens, looking for 10 feet tall, green, walking, talking beings. Because who knows, maybe someday our fascination will bear fruit. After all, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. We don't know about aliens, but us humans, we love to eat ice cream. An average person will eat about 3 kilos of ice cream this year. Now, most of us stick to the basics, but some ice cream fiends love challenging their taste buds, like in Hungary, where experimental flavors are all the rage. We're talking about cabbage stew, paprika chicken, and scrambled eggs. These are ice cream flavors. In fact, we are seeing a similar trend the world over, including chole bhature and dal makhni ice creams in India, and ranch dressing and pizza ice creams in the US. So what's behind this bizarre wave of ice cream experiments, and how experimental is too experimental? Here's a report.
Take a scoop of this: potato pancake ice cream, beer-flavored ice cream, scrambled eggs, tomato soup, and even cabbage stew ice cream. Would you like a taste of that? Yes, we didn't think so. But if you ask this question in Hungary, the answer will most likely be a resounding yes. Because in Hungary, bizarre ice creams have become an overnight hit, mostly thanks to this man, Robert Reinhardt. He has been experimenting with ice creams, challenging people's taste buds and blowing their minds.
As I started experimenting with meal-based ice creams, I then realized that you could get really good flavors out of it. This is not a joke category.
This may seem absurd, but there's quite the consumer base for these strange flavors. People are queuing up for paprika chicken and fried cheese ice creams, and there's a lot of buzz on social media.
For me, the tomato soup, the dill sheep cheese, and the fried cheese tasted the best. I thought they were delicious, but they were all good actually.
While some people on social media are not enthused, many ice cream fiends are loving the surprising flavors, though they agree the flavors do take some getting used to.
My tongue is used to it being sweet when I eat ice cream, and this is salty. It's a very strange feeling.
This is a peanut corn puff ice cream, so I thought I'd try it because I love peanut corn puff and it is super tasty in ice cream too. At first it was a little strange, but it tastes the same.
But experimental ice creams are not limited to Hungary. Have you heard of Van Leeuwen ice cream? It's a fan favorite for gourmet ice creams. In the US, they are slipping in some shock flavors like Hidden Valley Ranch, pizza, and even mac and cheese. Basically, you'll get milk and sugar, but also onion and garlic. It's quite the mix. These combinations are going viral in India as well. But not just as flavors, here popular dishes are often cut up and mixed with ice cream. And voila, we have chole bhature and dal makhni ice creams. If you think this is disgusting, there's also Maggi ice cream, because human imagination really knows no bounds. But if this bugs you, know that people also eat actual bugs in their ice cream. In some parts of Germany, cricket ice cream is a popular choice. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like, cricket-flavored scoops with real dried crickets on top. When it comes to ice creams, experimentation seems to be the flavor of the season. But the burning question is, how much is too much?
Tonight's joke is on everyone who doesn't have Nvidia shares. Their quarterly reports are out, and big surprise, they beat expectations. Nvidia shares are 160% up compared to last year and 2,900% up in the last 5 years. I'll repeat that, 2,900% up in the last 5 years. People are having watch parties to see the earnings report. Might as well post on Instagram saying, I have no friends. But who cares when you have Nvidia shares? All this craze is because of artificial intelligence. Nvidia makes special chips for AI and companies are buying it faster than actual chips. It perfectly sums up the AI race. No one understands it well, but they know it's important. The internet is flooded with jokes about Nvidia's performance. Some are wishing each other happy Nvidia earnings day. I'm guessing these are the same people who hang out with ChatGPT.
You can't judge a man's will. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. You can't measure a man's will. Oh, yes, sir. When a man get the will that y'all guys have, the sky's the limit. Yes, sir.
Yeah, boy.
You know I'm mobbing with the D.R.E.
जैसे ही यहाँ परिस्थिति गंभीर दिखाई दी, उसी टाइम पे उसी दिन आदरणीय मुख्यमंत्री भूपेंद्र भाई पटेल साहब ने पूरे निर्देश दे दिए थे। उसकी वजह से आज हम 5,000 से ज्यादा लोगों को हम उसके स्थलांतर करा दिया है और साथ में 1,200 लोगों को उनको उसका रेस्क्यू भी किया गया है। तंत्र पूरी तरह से लगा हुआ है। हमारी प्रायोरिटी तंत्र की और सरकार की, क्योंकि विश्वामित्री नदी बड़ौदा के अंदर से गुजरती है और दोनों तरफ बीचों बीच से गुजरती है, तो दोनों तरफ ये पानी फैल गया है। करीबन 10-12 फीट से लेके 3-4 फुट तक 1.5-2.5 किलोमीटर तक ये पानी चला गया है।
Well, this breaking input is also pertinent to the intensifying situation in Gujarat, pertinent to the heavy rainfalls. Now, PM Modi has dialed to the Gujarat CM Bhupendra Patel and said that PM is all set to give guidance on matters including sanitation and public health in the flooded areas and to restore public life quickly, and once again assured all kind of support from the central government. So these are the latest inputs that we are tracking from the ground at this point of time, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi has stepped in, offering guidance and assurances of central support to mitigate the entire crisis. Now, joining us on the broadcast is our colleague from
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. 4,000 athletes parade in Paris after a colourful ceremony kickstarts the 2024 Paralympics. Hundreds of thousands of dead fish blanket a Greek tourist port after flooding. And SpaceX's Falcon 9 was grounded after a failed landing attempt. Finally, we are taking you back in history on this day in 2005. Hurricane Katrina struck the US Gulf Coast. It led to floods that submerged the city of New Orleans. Katrina was one of the worst storms in US history. It killed more than 1,400 people and caused damages worth $200 billion. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. There is a shocking new audio clip that is out. It basically shows two phone calls between the authorities at the RG Kar hospital and the family of the doctor who was raped and murdered. In the first phone call, one of the assistant superintendents of the hospital is heard telling the family of Abhaya that, look, your daughter is in danger, please come and rescue her. Rush to the hospital immediately. This is after and despite the fact that the victim, the survivor, was clearly dead by the time this call happened, and yet there is no revealing of the fact by the hospital authorities that the survivor is dead. And then a few minutes later, there is a second follow-up phone call in which another assistant superintendent who is heard saying to the family of the survivor that, look, your daughter could have either committed suicide or she has been murdered. Please come.